Good evening, Mayor.
Hey, Rachel, how you how you
I
tonight?
am doing well. I am doing well. It's always great to, as we kick off this month, of course, with our intro, we are celebrating Black History Month tonight, so we're excited about that.
Yeah,
Excited to celebrate our guests and all of the wonderful things that come along with this month of February. But of course, as I like to tell people, we are 365 for celebrating and recognizing Black excellence and 366, depending on what year you're in, but definitely celebrating excellence every day of the year.
yeah. It should be year round, right? Year long,
Look,
all year long.
absolutely, Mayor, absolutely. As I
Exactly.
like to tell people, this greatness, should definitely be one for all of the people that we're going to talk about tonight and celebrate, particularly looking at celebrating some of our Black businesses. And just going to put some of those up there, our Black owned businesses here in Roseville and some on the outskirts of Roseville.
Mhm.
Arise Co working, of course. We always like to highlight our first and only co working space here in Roseville. Black and White Coffee Roasters. Shout out to Lim. I'm always proud to shout him out. He has some great things happening. His business is expanding and growing like crazy. He's even expanded to RDU. So you'll see him at RDU soon too. So if he's not already there, he'll be there soon. So I'm also pointing out Confinity Health, Roseville's only direct primary care. We also have Terry Simmons, CPA. She's been here. Oh my gracious, Mayor. How long has Terry been around here?
I don't know. I was thinking about that other night, and Terry is not a. I don't even I think she's old, but she's had her business is one of the legacy businesses here in town, and
Yes.
probably about the whole time that shopping center been down there, it's always been Terry down there.
And then also looking at some of our other businesses, shouting them out: DV Alston Consulting, Dan T. Alston, my fellow Rotarian veteran and also commissioner here in Roseville, GCJ Productions. Gordon's phenomenal. He can help you with design and all of that other wonderful stuff. But we also just had a ribbon cutting for the Heavenly Family Care Home,
Hmm.
which was wonderful.
Right,
We
it
just had a
was.
ribbon cutting for them, and Mayor had an interesting experience where, in the middle of his speech, we had someone to walk up and just say, "Oh, get a picture of me with the
Yeah,
mayor's
that's right.
pocket."
That's right. Yeah, I think that was the owner's dad. I mean,
Yes, it
it
was.
was, and
Yes, it was.
it was
Yes,
it's
it
a
was.
nice. I have heard talk of those homes, in town, but I think that was the first one I actually been in and got to meet the residents and all. And it's something that's really, some businesses serves a purpose, but that serves a real need.
Yes, it
It's a
does.
it's a real need. It's not just a purpose of somebody having a business to make an income from. It's a real service and a real need to the community to have something like that for people to have a good place to live. In their later years of life. It's just really great to live in a home, to live in a house, and
Yes. So, hello, Anita. Kudos to her. Shout her out for wonderful ribbon cutting. Also, looking at just some of the businesses on the list, TBL Business Solutions. That is Tisha Baker Lowe. She is a consultant here in Roseville. Also, does great work. If you're looking for someone to work with you, definitely look her up. She's an excellent resource. Thorn to Rose Foundation, which is our mental health foundation that was created to support Black and Brown, not just Black and Brown, but anyone, especially now when you're looking at everything that's happening with our youth. This is definitely a resource for you for mental health, looking for resources and some ways to get options for your youth. So definitely want to shout quite a few of those out. But we wanted to leave it up so that you can see them. Hopefully, you guys can take a screenshot, pull out your phone, take a picture of them. But those are some of our Black owned businesses here that are part of the Roseville Chamber. Also, want to look at when you talk about diversity and look at the percentage of the chamber membership, and you like to look at a target amount of what your membership looks like. And the Roseville Chamber has about 30% of our membership is actually minority owned. And so that's huge, not including being a woman owned business, but just minority owned, a person of color of some shape, form, or fashion. And then also, when you look at the number of Black owned businesses, we do fall somewhere in about the 20%, a little more than 20%. But so that's still a good number, Mayor.
it is
When you
it
look
is
at
Rachel. Yeah,
having those stats.
and one of the things about Black History Month, Black History, you think about the past. You think about like the
Mhm.
chamber in the past, and I think the chambers came a long way. So I don't know the numbers, but if you go back 20 years, I don't think the screen would look like that. It's just been so much more businesses open up here with Black owners, and we do it every day, like the ribbon cuttings. I think the last two we did this past month or this week actually was Black businesses. So I think it's just increasing and increasing. And one thing you said, you used the term "some of," and
Yes,
I really think this is some of all
yes,
of them. And
yes.
it's probably some. Unfortunately, you know how I plug the chamber every time I go out and talk to people. I always plug in the chamber, but there's probably some that are not in the chamber that that is here. So this is some of them. It's a lot
Yeah.
of them, I would say, but it's probably some more too that are here in town that we're not talking about
Oh,
tonight.
there are a lot more, and I know some of those business owners. And of course, for us, we highlighted our chamber members because that's the benefit of being a chamber member. And also, when we look at programs like Launch Rolesville, those are programs that also help us when we look to increase and diversify our business pool here. And so,
Mhm.
looking at businesses like Distinctive Designs by Danny, Danielle participated in our Launch Roseville program and then joined the Chamber of Commerce after completing that program. So we look at programs like that, which are a great option for us when we look at how do we expand our business pool. How do we look out when we look at economic development and recruiting businesses to come here in Roseville? One, to get them out there so people know their business exists. And then also, some of the things we look at here in Roseville is we have a lot of businesses that are ran out of homes. They're home-based businesses. And so when you look at the brick and mortar, because Mayor, you and I both know, commercial doesn't exist just yet for a lot of the businesses. It's
Right.
coming, but it doesn't exist yet. But that's something too that we think about. A lot of our home-based businesses that are, Black owned or woman owned or any other, category that it may fit. So we're excited to list some of them here tonight. So we wanted to make sure that our community knows how much we support them and appreciate them and are thankful that they are chamber members. And so we don't want to belabor, Mayor, because we know shows like this, we have great guests tonight, and we want to make sure we give them enough time, especially when we look at celebrating Black history. And I'm excited for one of our guests that we have on. She has been around a long time. She has a lot of history. I don't even know if we can get a lot of it out tonight, but I do know that she has a lot of history to share, and she knows probably more than a lot of other people around.
Yeah.
And is the person that we always refer people to. It's like, if you want to know, go ask Reverend Walker. She'll
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah. I've been knowing her a long time, but I did not know her. I see her. If you ever go to New Bethel Church, she's the icon. She's one of the
Yes.
icons there at New Bethel, and every time I go there, she has part of the morning, and so I knew her, but I never really got to know her until
Mhm.
recently. And you're right. She's got a exciting story. She got a good story. Rolesville was her home, the Rolesville community, and sometimes talking to people that are older than you, and it's not many people older than me for sure. So it's just a delight. It's a delight to get the perspective, and that's what I hope we get tonight from Reverend Walker is
I
that
call them
perspective.
seasoned, Mayor. That's what I call them. They're like, oh, they're seasoned.
Season, yeah.
They're seasoned. So let's go ahead and bring Reverend Walker in. Hi, Reverend Walker.
Good
Hey,
evening. Hello.
hey, yeah. Good to have you on the show tonight. Very
Mhm.
exciting. Saw you yesterday. Yesterday was an exciting day, and
Yes, it was. Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
I know. I know the birthday party. I really think New Bethel did a great job of that, and
Yeah,
uh, and
yes.
and honoring Ms. Young to be 100. As I said to her, it's a real blessing, is it not, Ms. Walker?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
It's a real blessing. So I appreciate you coming on the show. I know you've had a lot of connections in the community. Been, we'll talk about how long you've been at New Bethel, which is a long time. But just for the people that's watching tonight, and we'll be watching, the reruns in the future, kind of tell us who you are and kind of give us, a brief bio of when you moved to Rolesville and some of the things about Reverend Mary Walker.
Good evening, everyone. I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk about my hometown, Rolesville. I tell people that I grew up in the great granite hills of the Rolesville Rock Quarry. My father and my mother, there was 9 of us children in the home, and I'm the youngest daughter. I have one brother remaining. He's the youngest child. And there were 9 of us in the home. And I was actually born in Raleigh, the St. Agnes Hospital, but the Rock Quarry was our home. That's where my father worked. And all of my brothers, as they came of age, worked there in the quarry too. It was owned by Brian Rock and Sand at first, and then Brian Monroe, and then later on it was bought out by Martin Marietta.
Right.
And I think the quarry closed down in the 60s, maybe around 63 or 64. The word was that the stone had come to a place where it had less value. So the men that were working there started working in a place called Elm City. So my father was away from home to work at the quarry down there. He and my oldest brother, my other brothers worked only a short period of time, and then they found, employment someplace else. But it was a place of excitement. As my father worked, he operated the crusher. And so on weekends, when it was a breakdown, he worked the whole weekend to repair that crusher so they could get back to work and producing crusher run and chat and all the other different rocks that they had to produce from that quarry. I don't know whether I shared what you wanted to hear or not, but
yeah, that's a great story. A lot of people in Rolesville don't even know about the quarry, because it's really not open to the general public. You have to be part of that swim club or something to go out there. But it is, I've been out there quite often, and it is an amazing place. I imagine you saw about water in there, though. Is that correct, or you actually saw it before it filled up?
Yes, as it started building up, yes, indeed, filling in there, and it seems like it's water everywhere down there now. Yes, indeed, we.
One thing I was ask you about your father. You mentioned him as working on the rock crush and all, but I kind of understand he had a very important job then to make sure that the machines was running.
Yes,
and your family was the ones that kept the machines and stuff going for them to be able to do the work.
Yes, and then my brother Roosevelt worked beside him. The 2 of them were the operators of the crusher. They had to keep that conveyor going. They had to make sure that everything was working as it should be. So they would work over the amazing thing about it, though, is that my father actually only had a 2nd grade education, but he was a very smart man. And he was able to accomplish a lot working there at that quarry.
Sounds like he was good at mechanics and fixing things and making things run and working on stuff and repairing things. Yeah, my dad was a mechanic, so my dad was like that. If something broke, he tried to fix it, And I know where you're coming from there. So Ms. Walker, I wanted to talk a little bit about Black History Month and Black history, and one of the things. One of the things, in my proclamation, I kind of read, one of the important things is just have knowledge about Black history. You don't lose the knowledge of back then. And I guess the whole thing is the progress that we've had in our nation when it comes to Black history. Would you describe that as being something that you you experienced firsthand the progress that has been made?
Just because one of the things that was a puzzle to me as a child growing up, and not being able to go in the front door of an eating place and stuff like that. Those changes that have taken place make sense to me, because a lot of times, there were black people doing the preparation of the food inside, but then we had to go. It was right beside the church, but we always had to go to the side door to if we shopped, decided we were going to purchase anything there. But in my home, my father, like I said, was a very smart man. We planted large gardens, so he knew how to can and preserve the stuff that we grew in that garden. So that made a difference. So we raised hogs so that we'd have plenty of meat to eat. But we didn't experience any, what you might say, any kind of hostilities or anything. But we knew that there was that tension and that friction in the time of in the time of my growing up. But I appreciate the changes that have taken place, whereby there is acceptance of people much better than it once was.
Yeah. How would you, I guess, in your childhood coming up, how would you describe, would you describe it as being just hard or harsh, or, what's the difference then than it is today? I guess when you lived then, it felt normal, but if you're looking back,
Yes.
you didn't have some of the things that people had, like we have today, the conveniences and stuff. For once, going out to eat every night, like some people do, and things like that.
Mhm. Those restrictions and limitations, but my father taught us to, live at home. You don't have to, be out bothering anybody. We were taught to behave ourselves, have good manners, and dealing with other people. Uh, I don't know quite how to describe, because we never had it. Like I said, we never had really any conflicts of any kind with any racial conflicts and any things like that would have impacted our lives. We worked, we did did the things that we had to do, but there were those limitations that we were our fathers made us sure that we stayed in the boundaries that we had to stay within.
Yeah, I think you told me one time, and I may be wrong about this, but I think you told me one time there was a lot of goodness and humidity back then. There's a lot of goodness.
The what now?
I think you told me one time back in those days, even though it was harsh and everything, there was a lot of goodness back there. A lot of goodness and a
Yes,
lot of
and we could share with one another. We were able to share with one another. It wasn't necessarily bartering, but like among neighbors, if one person was running short of say sugar or something, we could send to the neighbors, and we could I could or do an exchange. I can give you some butter if you give me a cup of sugar, because I'm trying to make this dish, and we were able to get along like that. Well. In sharing with one another and helping each other like that. We didn't have the friction, a whole lot of friction.
You felt like it was less friction back then than it is today?
It's a different kind of friction today.
Right.
Because I don't know how to describe it. It's just a different kind of friction. But I'm thinking we knew what our limitations were, and I've said that already. But we knew that there were certain things that we were going to get in trouble with if we did certain things. So we lived within those boundaries and get out of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and maybe you could talk about this a little bit, Ms. Walker. You are very, you're reverent. So you got called by God to, to follow that, to be a reverend and to serve Him in that way. But I think even one of the things about, you know 25, 30, 50 years ago, church was a big part of the community, was it not? I mean, for the Black community around the Rock Quarry and New Bethel and all. I mean, that was the place. I mean, the place to go and
It
all.
was the,
Is that right?
it was the meeting place. It was a place for social gathering as well as spiritual gathering, and because we had certain kinds of programs. We had back in that day, we had what we called Children's Day, when the children participated. They did their speeches. The children had to memorize speeches to do. So that's just one of the starts that we had. And also we had to memorize Bible verses in the church, as well as at home. My father insisted that we be sure to memorize Bible verses, read the hymn book, and not read comic books. That's something
Right.
that was the way it was in our
Right. There was no place for the comic books back then. What would he say? What would he say about the kids? What would he say about the kids and the iPhones today?
He would shake his head and just say they're missing the mark.
I bet so. I don't know what my dad and mom would say about that. I know I wouldn't have got one until I was out of high school to pay it for myself. I know that for a fact. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I back to the church. You mentioned that it was a social place. It was a place that people came not only for spiritual, but for social. I think the churches today may have lost some of that. What's your thinking on that, being you a reverend and a minister and stuff?
There are so many things to attract the attention of people's attention nowadays that, and see, but church was pretty much the only thing that African Americans had church for, because we would have like big dinners at our church. That's why I called it a time of social gathering. Mm-hmm. And we'd have fellowship, even though there were times when we had big tables outside under the trees, and people brought the picnic lunches, and we shared with one another and ate together. And that was something that was done quite often. And it was a time of getting to know people, getting to meet people, because most of us worked all week long. So on the weekend, getting to be with your friends at church was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think you also told me one time that back then the churches was sort of instrumental, or maybe even inspiring for the community. It gave the community the feel. Is that
yes, indeed. Yes, I think the church had a lot more influence at that time. People, they admired their pastors, and the pastors were the kind of people that visited homes and encouraged families and counseled family members, things like that. So it made church had a great significance to me at that time, and it has a great significance now, but it's kind of flavored a little bit different now.
Yeah, it is. I think I go to New Bethel. I help them with, and we'll talk about a little bit about the food banks and stuff they do, and it's a big need for the community. What you do there, the church provides not only spiritual things for the members, but food for the community and stuff, and that's a big need for sure. So in some ways the church purpose has changed, and the way it serves the community has changed over the years. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it has changed, and a lot of it is for the good, though. Now it's not all for the bad.
Right.
A lot of the change for the good, especially like with New Bethel with the food bank. I'm sure that helps a multitude of people to be able to make it, because it's like a mecca for people come. I'm pretty sure from far and near to get something so that it will add to their grocery supply. And I'm grateful that we do have that food bank.
I know a few times, and I wish I could help more than I have, but the few times I have helped, it's not just people in the community. Cars pulled up there from other places that comes and gets food. It's very eye opening of how widespread the ministry is there and what it serves. But I guess in my day we had the revivals and things, the spiritual revivals in the summertime,
Yes.
and a lot of people would they may not have come to church all year, but they knew they came to the revivals because that's kind of the purpose of it. I think we've lost a little bit of that though from a spiritual standpoint. Do you see that? Do you see that? Or?
I think so too. I was talking with a friend of mine the other day, and I was asking, I said, when did we take the mourners bench out of the church? Because back in the day when,
Right.
as a child, there was in the church, there was a mourners bench. You sat there and they prayed around you and over you and was, encouraging you to accept the Lord as Savior. But now it's, I don't want to say it borders on entertainment, but I would say that, church it's changed. It's still getting the job done, though. I would have to say that. But the order, the methods of doing things have changed a lot since.
Yeah, I
I was
believe that.
a child.
I believe that. And I always enjoy talking to you about the church and New Bethel and things going on there. But before we wrap up, is one thing I want to ask you about, get your opinion on. This is Black History. We're celebrating the history, things in the past. But let's say, Black future. What do you see? Do you feel like we're in a good place? And do you feel good about the future? What's going to happen or how things going to turn out? I guess even not even just for Blacks, for everybody in the community.
It's going to turn out great for everyone because as Blacks are accepted with their talented and gifted selves, as history has shown over and over again, the great gifts, the inventions, the Benjamin Banneker's and people like that have invented, as we cooperate across the races to accomplish what we need to accomplish, it's going to be a great thing because everyone's gifts they're properly accepted.
Yeah.
And then when the more you can put in the pile, the bigger the pile will be and the greater things will be. So with that business of being accepted and, being able to come to the table and what you bring to the table is accepted, that's going to make a world of difference.
Yeah, I think so. And, if you're a believer like me, I believe God created everybody equal. He didn't create some people to be different than others. And I believe everybody was created equal. And in that way, we all should be treated equal, I think, Ms. Walker. And I think that's what I'm hearing you saying. We're getting closer to that. I think in the past, we probably have not done that very well. But you feel like the future is bright to not only where we're at today. It's just going to get, you feel good about the future, I think, is what you're saying.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Because the gifts everyone's gifts are being properly accepted. It's not as much as it should be, but it's better than it used to be. So that I applaud that. Yes, I do.
Great. I tell you, Rachel, I hate to see you come back on because that's a signal. That's a signal we have to wrap up. And I tell you, I really enjoyed talking to Reverend Walker. And it's really amazing the people in the community, and I look at Ms. Walker, I'm the mayor of town of Rolesville, but the Rolesville community is bigger than the town.
Yes.
It's a large Rolesville community that's been there for hundreds of years, even before the town existed. You had the Rolesville community, so. So, it's so many people like you in the community I really don't know well. And it's just it's so inspirational to really get to know someone, like I have got to know you and to get your perspective. I've been to the rock quarry a lot, but I never knew the history of someone working in, I never knew someone working in there. Now I know your father worked there. And not only did he work there, he was an important person that kept the machines running and things going. And it's just inspirational to me. So thank you so much. And Rachel, did you have any questions from anybody they want to ask?
No, we don't have any questions, Mayor. We knew that, one was given enough time for Reverend Walker to speak. And so I love to hear her share. And she definitely is a gem in our community, and we're definitely blessed to have her. So thank you so much, Reverend Walker, for joining us this evening.
I love calling Rolesville, North Carolina, my home.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Reverend Walker. And we're just so Mayor, as we look to move to our next guest, and always looking at the time because the time goes so quickly, speaking of Rolesville and kind of growing up in the community and being around in New Bethel, and there's so much history attached to New Bethel, just the church in itself as it relates to Rolesville. And so our next guest, looking at Pastor Long Jr., whose father, of course, was well known for being the pastor at New Bethel for such a long time. So, Linwood, we're definitely excited to have you here. I know you have a lot to share and doing some great things. So, and I love the Black History Month frame overlay that's showing. So always proud to have you here. So, Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Rachel. And hey, Linwood, how you doing, bub?
How you doing, Mayor? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. It's always exciting to talk to you and have you on. I know we've had some one-on-ones, and probably not enough. It's something I think as we go on. Like I said, I've known you for a while. I know your dad.
Yeah.
I know your dad for years and years, and I'm gonna say he is a character, and I got to see him yesterday. I hadn't seen him in a while, and we went to the birthday thing, and I saw him there. Got to talk to him. It's always good, talk to your dad, and very much enjoy it. And I guess people can figure out, your dad is, Reverend Linwood Long, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But it's great talking to him, and I got to know you more, and I think. What do they call a chip off the block? I mean, you just as inspirational as your dad is talking to you and stuff, and really appreciate having you on the show. And one of the things I wanted to get when I was talking to Rachel about forming the show is get somebody that has a perspective like Reverend Walker that's knows a lot of things that me and you, neither one of us know, and lived in times that we never lived in, and experienced things that we never experienced, and and get that perspective. But I want to get a perspective from you that kind of grew up here. Not you wasn't born here, I don't think, but kind of grew up here, and kind of get a more recent perspective. And so tell everybody. I think a lot of people know Linwood Long Jr., but just tell everybody a little bit about you and where you grew up at and those type things.
Sure. So hello, everyone. I am Linwood Long Jr. I'm affectionately known as Pastor Wood for Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church in Lewisburg, North Carolina. But who am I, right? So I am a Rolevillian. I am a proud Rolevillian. I scream Ville-side at the games. I wear my Ram Pride jerseys, and I am excited about all the things that Rolesville has. I've been in the community, over 23 years. My father was the pastor of the church for 23 years, in New Bethel Baptist Church, and being here, those were during my formidable years as a young adult. So I've got to see some of the changes of Rolesville as it continued to evolve, even the Rogers Road evolution, even down to some of the nuances and changes that they're doing around traffic and traffic structures. Just being able to see all those things, and then overall, I've worked from Raleigh, born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina, but some 10 years ago, I rode past this particular land on Rogers Road. Had no clue that it was going to be my future home, but one day they put up their homes for sale, and that seems at that moment I had I considered it a divine intuition that this was going to be my home for the rest of my life, and that was Rolesville. And guess what? Fast forward 8 years later, Rolesville became my official long-term home, and I couldn't imagine being anywhere else.
And I tell you, it's great. It's great to have you here. And it was just recently I realized you lived in town, because I always kind of thought every time I met you and talked to you, I kind of thought you lived near Lewisburg somewhere because that's kind of where your church was.
Yes, sir.
But to find out that you still live in Rolesville is very very much exciting. But just a little bit about Black History Month and a little talk about that. Um, uh, one of the things we try to accomplish during Black History Month is just get a better knowledge, a better understanding of Black history, how Black history has, you know, really led in some ways the progress of our nation, of our town, of our community. Any thoughts on your experience in that and some of the things that has been done to progress, Black history or Black culture more than anything?
I think there are a multitude of things that we could call out, right? Reverend Walker has so much wisdom
I
and
tell
brought so
you,
much fire. I don't want to dare step on those
it's
words,
hard.
but
It's hard to follow her, right?
it is hard to follow. So I'm just going to be myself, and hopefully it's sufficient. But I'll say that the advancement of African Americans and Blacks has become not just around music, and athletics. At one point, I would think, at one point, it felt like that all we were seen to do well were the things that were of athletics and also within music. And what I've seen from an evolution, not only personally, but also just as the culture, is that the world is starting to see the intellect, the power, and the desire for us to change the narrative about us only being good for things of athleticism. We are highly intellectual with computers. We are motivators, and we are also CEOs and CIOs and CFOs. We are moving the needle. And in my age, of a ripe age of 48, I've seen the needle move quite a bit. Pay equality, opportunities in Congress, opportunities in state and local government. There has been an evolution. Second thing I've seen is that there's more of an acceptance, but yet there's still a resistance. It's interesting because there's an acceptance for us to continue to be viable citizens and to love this country, but yet there's a resistance to the advancement, and that's the piece that we have to continue to work through. And the last thing that I
Yeah.
will call out is an appreciation. I think the appreciation for people has increased over my life to where um, um, there's work to do for appreciation of one another. But I've seen personally where cultures and people are more willing to listen than they ever have been before. But it's always the bad apples that get heard the loudest. But I really
Right.
believe that there is a passion from people to really kill the noise of negativity.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I think, and you may, you may have a little slight different perspective of this, but I believe the Bible teaches us evil in this world, and
Absolutely.
sometimes the devil, this evilness, gets into people, and I think the Bible teaches us you will never ever live on earth as you would in heaven. So there's a lot of things you would never really be able to stamp out is some of that. But I think one of the things that we do, and one of the things I said in my proclamation, Reverend Long, is just a continuous crusade or continuous effort to eliminate barriers of inequality,
Hmm.
for the minority groups, and that's all we. It's almost a battle against evil sometimes. So how do you? I think you already said in a way of seeing some of those barriers of inequality being broken down.
So one thing I didn't get a chance to do, you asked me who I was, and I should have said this before. Hey, Mayor, has anyone told you I love you today?
Right.
If not, please let me be the first person to tell you that I love you.
I
And
don't.
Rachel, that goes for
Well,
you too.
you would get me in trouble if I didn't say Beth did, but but yeah, I would say you're the first one outside the family. How about that?
And see, and there lies the resolution. Is you're correct. The Bible is very clear about, one of the greatest commandment today is to love thy neighbor as you love
Right,
thyself.
right.
And how can you not love your neighbor? And that means you're really saying you can't love yourself. And I just believe that people really don't want to be seen as a person that's not loving. But we get so caught up in passions of politics, monies, or territory, or just old history and doesn't actually translate to sometimes to the new way of doing things. It just doesn't. That's why there's an Old Testament and New Testament. That's why there's history of yesterday and there's the present. There's progressiveness in how we should love and treat one another. The one missing piece is a unified element of love. The more people that we share love with, the more people that we extend love with, the more that we go to our neighbor and tell our neighbors we love them, the more we can start killing the noise of this negativity. And I think, Mayor, I shared this with you the last time. I remember when they sang in the commercial, I like to buy a world a Coke,
Right.
and create this place of harmony. And I was like, at a young age, it illuminated that there was love amongst people, and yes, it came from someone offering a Coca-Cola, but it was bigger than that. It was the fact that you saw black and white then, and Hispanic and Asian all in this one commercial sharing a Coca-Cola together.
Right.
We need to get back to those days.
Yeah, Linwood, sometimes I still see that. You'll go somewhere and you'll see that love for each other, and the race is taken out of the picture; it's not even considered.
Right.
But you sometimes you don't, and that's the thing. But I think as a town, one of the responsibilities I have is to try to keep pushing for, I think as God teaches us, we will never be perfect, and we will never reach perfection until, till we go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
It won't ever be perfection on earth, but I think we can get better and better and better. And I think that's what this month is about, is to try to learn some things that we can kind of push the needle on to get better. And in saying that, what are some ways you think as a Rolesville community that we can do to push the needle a little bit on equality and loving each other, maybe?
I love the diversity that Rolesville has created over the last 15 years. I'm going to be completely transparent, and this is not an indictment against the city of Rolesville. It was just the dynamics of the way it was at that time. And, my dad came to the church 23 years ago. And at that time, it was not very fun for an African-American Black person to drive in Rolesville. They had a notion, it was called DWB, driving while Black in Rolesville. And at times it seemed very uncomfortable. And no, not at times it was uncomfortable. I had my own personal engagement with that. And by the grace of God, it turned out for the good. But what I saw over the next 5-10 years was a concentrated effort to change the narrative to be treated as equal based upon who you are, not based upon your color. And I think it's important that what we do today in the community is that we need to celebrate Black history, but it should not have to be just 1 month. But if that's what we have, then we need to celebrate it together. We need to do programs together. We need to create a narrative of not only excited about the history of African Americans, but also the present gains that we have by all of us seeking love and power, not power, but a power of togetherness when we are on the same page. The hardest thing for people to do is to relax their past pains to enjoy the newness and freshness of today's reality. If I walked around still believing that I was an object of being pulled or being quite frankly singled out because of my color while driving around Rolesville, I would have never moved here. But because I saw culture changes, I saw a shift in the people, a dynamic that is still happening. But it comes down to us being very intentional about our planning. We must plan events. Even if it starts with just a prayer vigilant, if it starts with a breakfast, a Black History Month breakfast where we all come together and we talk about not only the history of African Americans, but we talk about some of the successes of our allies too. The story has to be, how do we come together to serve the greater purpose of one another?
Yeah, and I think one of the things I was going to ask you about is position. I asked Ms. Walker the position we think we are today, and as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about what I could do, and I have this platform on the show, and I think I hope this will be a good thing that we're doing, is bringing awareness up. But that shouldn't be the last thing we do, right? like you said, it's just a continuous growth. And and I agree with you. I think we've come a ways in the last few years of recognizing the month, but I think there is there is future improvements. One of the things I think I talked to I don't know if I mentioned this to you, Linwood, but I have talked about it some. You know, most of the most of the people that I know, African American, Black here in town, you know, during the month they go to other places. They go to Raleigh for the big, gatherings, and they go to the big events and stuff like that. That's good. That's probably a really good thing to do. But how do we keep some in town? How do we have our own? How do we promote our own? And I think that's what you're saying too.
That is exactly what I'm alluding to, Mayor. I believe if we create something, and hey, Rosevillians, my Rosevillites, it's time for us
Right.
to come together and let's be just as much as we're ready to do a barbecue and the 4th of July celebration. Let's also take that same time and celebrate our cultures that are here that represent us as a demographic. And that
Right.
means we need to come together, man. Like, hey, we can come together for a breakfast, a coffee, a tea. Let's if we don't want to do a breakfast, let's do a Roseville Black History Month tea. Let's go to one of the churches, or let's go to the schools, and let's promote togetherness by celebrating the culture, diversity, growth, and quite frankly, the reality of that it's a month in which we get to learn about the history of our neighbors. And let's not try to leave it topical. Let's not just do the same routine of the same people. Let's try to educate more. And I think that's one of the things we can do in that celebration. I believe that Roseville is prime for that.
I think so. I think so. And I talked to just some of the ministers, and I talked to actually, the minister who took your dad's place, Reverend Ely. Very
Yes,
nice.
sir.
I don't know if you got a good relationship. I
I
think you
do.
I think you worked for him for a
I,
while doing some
we work
stuff.
together.
Yeah,
That's my friend.
yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So, and I got a really good relationship with him. And I talked to him pretty much the same digest about churches. How do we do the similar thing to bring the church into the community of having breakfasts and having get together, rather than have a church as being a church, have the
Yes.
whole community being part of the church in
Yes.
some ways. And I think what you're talking about, actually, the Black history culture, and the remembrance and all that, same way. It's just building community togetherness, I think you call it.
Yes, sir. That is the one element that we should all strive for.
Yeah, that's
Togetherness.
right. Um, Well, Rachel will be back in a minute, so I want to
Okay.
shift gears a little bit and talk about businesses. Um, I know you saw the thing that Rachel put up on the businesses, the Black businesses in town, um, and um, and I think that's changed over the years. I think that's
Hmm.
one of the things that has progressed, and got better, or got more, I guess, more in line with with the uh, the demographics of the area,
Yes, sir.
and got better in that. But I think I've heard you had interest in kind of doing some business things, and uh, as Rachel mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have the Launch Roseville program, and there's a lot of minority groups and Black Americans that participate in that program and learn
Mhm.
how to do businesses. So where do you think, and here's a question I ask, Linwood, where do you think we are in position for future businesses for Blacks? But I'm even thinking for everyone, everyone, opportunities for business, growth and stuff. Where do you think Roseville is in that?
If I'm correct, man, please correct me, but I believe Roseville is still the fastest growing community in Eastern North Carolina, if
I
I'm
think,
correct.
yeah, I think
And
I think that's correct.
or at least top five, right?
Right.
That's all you need to know. The business opportunities here for people are going to be outstanding. But we have to be not only intentional about our purpose in driving cultural togetherness, but we also have to be intentional and purposeful about tooting our horn about the growth that's going to come here. We need to be out in every street proud of Rolesville, North Carolina, the history of Rolesville, the progress of Rolesville, and the opportunity to create a business and some independency right here in Rolesville. I saw other places that for the business that I wanted to bring to this area. I saw other places that would do well, but there's something special about here in Rolesville. It is not only because of the people coming, it's not about financial gain. That is part of it, don't get me wrong. But I see the opportunity to create something that is going to be at a ground level that can be long term for the dynamic growth that this community is going forward. And I believe that regardless of your color, if you have an aspiration to be a business owner, an entrepreneur, to take your life and bet on you, then why not do it in Rolesville? There is no opportunity greater than a place where growth is already happening and will be continual over the next progressive. They're looking at the next 5 to 10 years. We will continually be in the top 5 of communities growing in this area.
Yeah, I agree, Linwood. And I've talked to the chamber a lot and talked to people a lot, and I call it passion.
Hmm.
You use a lot of terms that I call it. A person have a passion that they want to do, and they can turn that passion to a business. You know, that they will be very successful. But I think there's some places in North Carolina, even if you have the passion, it's going to be very difficult to do it there because they're
Hmm.
just not growing. It's just not. But I think what I tell people, I think in Rolesville, if you got a passion, you're more able to do it here than some other places. Do you feel the same way?
I love that. And yes, I do. If I may say this, passion is what drives anything that we do from a successful perspective. But if you have nowhere to do it, if you have no place to do it, if you have no hope in your passion, then you're just coming with ideas. But Roseville is a time where you can take your passion, your ideas, and your hope and let it grow as the community grows. I know Rachel has shown me that the community here, and Mayor, you have given us the opportunity to grow regardless of our racial makeup. It is about how do we grow this community together with the opportunity to be proud Rosevillians, and I am glad to be one.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Rachel's back. So when Rachel comes back, we know the signal there. So I tell you, I think I could talk to you another hour or longer, but we'll have to do it offline, Linwood, because I think Rachel has the clock on us, and we want to do a little wrap up, but let's just keep him on. Is Reverend Walker still here? We could bring her back in the closing time, and and Rachel, you have anything you want to say?
No, I mean, I know both guests. So I'm definitely excited for everything that Linwood has on the table. And there is, some parts of the discussion when you talk about diversity and some things to come, that could be a whole nother segment.
Hmm.
Looking at activities and things to do in the community. There's so much that you could look at options and things to do and kind of bring people together. And, as we look to do that, Mayor, I do want to say that definitely as we're talking about this, that on March 8th, we are holding a women's leadership brunch actually at New Bethel Baptist Church. One of the things that's very important for me when we look at events and how we host events was you'll look at the picture and you'll see it's very important for me to have diversity. Everything from the panelists that will be participating to the guests that have been invited and everyone that is involved. I want to show the diversity of Roseville and the diversity of who we are. And also, March 8th is International Women's Day. So it's a combination of all of that wrapped into one because we have a lot going on in the community and a lot of diversity. And sometimes when some organizations hold events for women and you look at for women, the constant thing that I hear is that Rachel, I go, but I'm not represented, or I am one of two in the room. And so I wanted to make sure that we didn't have that situation when we looked at this brunch, and everything from looking at the participants on the panel for this brunch, because we want everyone to be seen and to be heard. And also, one of the things people ask the question about when you look at kind of what is the focus of this brunch, I will tell you, we looked at everything from a stay-at-home mom to a career woman to do we want a politician or anything of that nature. We looked at all of that. And we wanted to make sure that it doesn't matter if you're working or not working, you still have value. And that was important for us for, when we talk about diversity and Roseville and kind of some of the things that we offer, this brunch will hit that for women. And you don't have to be a woman to come. I mean, it's open to everyone. But our focus, of course, is celebrating Women's History Month and International Women's Day. So I wanted to throw that out there as we were talking about, just kind of the diversity merit as we wrap up and things like that. And then also looking at after the month of March on April 27th, we'll have our annual dinner and awards banquet where we will celebrate our businesses and our community and the things that we've done. Of course, last year we held it in August, so it was a little off schedule and held it with our state of the town. So it was a little off schedule. So we're trying to work to get things back on schedule and back on target as we were prior to COVID or the pandemic. And so looking at the picture, you can kind of tell, you see that poodle skirt in there. The theme is Greece 1950s. So we want to make sure, people have a good time, a little rock and roll, a bunch of other things. So those are some of the things that when we look at as far as things that are happening. Of course, for any of this stuff, you can find information on the Roseville Chamber website or social media platforms of everything that we have going on. But I know that, Mayor, also when we do this, we also have people that comment. So we do want to say thank you, Eugenia, for tuning in and saying hi, Cindy, for tuning in to watch. And so we're always thankful for that. For anyone who tunes in and watches the show. But Mayor, and thank you for even having this.
Yes.
When you look at thinking about shows and looking at the panel and being able to celebrate things, celebrating Black history, as I said before, of course, this is 1 month. For many of us, it's 365 and 366 and plus. So I'm definitely appreciative of the opportunity to be able to have Reverend Walker and Pastor Long on. So it's a pleasure.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And Rachel, we've done 16 of these shows together. This is show number 16.
Wow.
And in those 16, no, it's 18. We've had 2 this year. So that 2 this year makes 18 shows together. And so that's 36 guests we've had on here. In thinking back, I don't know of any show that I felt as good about and enjoyed as much as this one with these 2 panelists. I mean, it's just been. I hate to. I don't know any other way to say it other than that it's probably the best show we've had, and I really appreciate them coming on. And I have to say, Rachel, you have been the best co-host that I have ever had. So, I don't know. You want to make your announcement tonight, or that this?
Well,
this
it
is
it has been made public, but Rachel has accepted an offer outside of Roseville. I will not mention it on air because this is all about Roseville, but I have accepted an offer outside of Roseville. So I will officially be leaving my role at the chamber as of next Friday. So definitely, Mayor, this is my last show as your co-host. Always a pleasure to bring my talents to Roseville. And I must say, I do want to thank the citizens of Roseville and my neighbors and everybody else for actually welcoming. I tell a lot of people my thought process is a little different. I'm not an in the box type of thinker. It's one of those things of being somewhere where people allow you to be yourself and kind of share your talents. And Roseville trusted me. They didn't get it, but they trusted me and some of the foresight and the vision that I had. And sometimes we talk about that with some people. Sometimes when you have these visions and things that you do, some people may not be able to see it the way you do, but they trust you to be able to get it done. And I do want to say thank you. And I see the people chiming in. New Bethel, thank you so much for watching. Of course, we have talked about New Bethel Baptist Church so much tonight. So we definitely are excited to have you also tuning in with us. And Eugenia, she is, I will say to Eugenia, she sent me a message when she got the notification with a couple of tears in it that let me know that, while she was happy, she was not happy. And I think that speaks volumes to our community. And also, Mayor, tell people it's a blessing. It truly is a blessing to be able to share my talents in our community, which is considered a rural community. And so it's one of those things of being able to share the talents and to be able to bring light to the talent that we have here in Rolesville and also the talent that comes out of HBCU. So I'm going to throw that out there too, because I am a proud HBCU alum. So shout out to St. Aug.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yes,
proud
certainly.
HBCU alum.
Certainly. And Rachel, I just want to thank you for the last almost 2 years. It was coming up on 2 years of working together, and it's been a real pleasure. And we're going to keep the show going. We booked all the way through the end of June, so
Yes.
we got 6 months of booking. There's already some people that's signed up that want to come, on the last 6 month shows, and I really enjoy doing these, and it's really been not only enjoyable but a pleasure working with you. You just made it so easy for me, pretty much, as being a co-host, and really appreciate that. And you will be missed. I think you've been with the chamber 5 years or
Yes.
somewhere along there, and I think Linwood. I think you made some comments earlier. Uh, when I first got to know Rachel, after I got to know her a while, some of the board members at the chamber, I said, look, I said, the thing about Rachel, I don't know how you're going to keep her. I think it's going to be a very short term thing. You're going to be looking again. And I really think that it has been a blessing for them to be able to keep you 5 years, to be truthful for you, Rachel, because your talents are so great that I think you just had a passion to just work around town, and your family. And I'm not speaking for you, but I think your family was first in some ways, and and now you're going to go out and spread your wings and do your talent stuff, and I'm so proud, and so I so much support what you're going to do, but we will miss you here.
Well,
Sure.
I appreciate it, Mayor. And for everyone listening, family is still first for me. So I always tell people, it doesn't matter where you go. You can get a lot of other things, but my husband's watching too. So I need to make sure he knows and hears family is still first, sweetheart. But that's very important. And that's part of what makes Roseville so great too. And also our love for community. That's a huge part of what we do. And I know that the people are chiming in. Some people really love you all. Eat Pop Kettle Corn. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we appreciate you joining too. And they gave a shout out to VSU, so I'm pretty sure they're loving. For those that don't know, VSU, Virginia State University. So all HBCU love.
Winston-Salem State University. Yes,
Look,
ma'am.
yes. We all about we throwing a lot out there tonight.
Yeah.
So. Mayor, definitely thank you to Linwood, Reverend Walker, and Pastor Long. I know Pastor Long and I have worked together to kind of build that relationship between the high school and the community, because it's so important. And for everyone who is watching, and I know that last week was such a tough week for so many parents and so many communities, not just here in Rolesville, but in other communities. I always tell people, the thing is, you're one community when you're winning, and you're going to be one community when you're losing. And so regardless of what's happening, we always have to put first the thought of the young people and make sure that we're giving them the support and the nurturing that they need to be successful and so that they can thrive. And so I know that we're all having a hard time processing quite a few things that are going on and happening. But, if we can come together as a community in the good times, let's come together as a community in the bad times too, and support one another. So I definitely want to say that, Mayor. And thank you for your leadership too. And to also our Roseville Police Department, because Chief Simmons and his team definitely have been working to make sure that Roseville stays safe and our SROs over at the schools.
Appreciate you mentioning that, Rachel. I think I agree with you 100%. And, I hope I hope the culture changes, as Linwood said in his thing. If everybody could just love everybody, and that goes to school kids too,
Yeah.
it just would be a better place, wouldn't it? And
So thank you all so much for watching, Mayor. We did a good job staying close to that hour, just a couple minutes over, but we appreciate everyone who tunes in and everyone who watches afterwards. And for everyone who is looking to celebrate Black History Month, we put those businesses up there because we would love for you to patron and support a lot of our Black-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses. So this is just a short list of those that exist in our community. So if you can take a screenshot, take a snippet, whatever it is that you do, and kind of pull some of those businesses up and look at ways of how you can support them. And you can always contact the Rolesville Chamber of Commerce, and we'll make sure that we put it out there, different ways of how you can actually reach those businesses too. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Reverend Walker. Thank you, Reverend Long. Appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Have a great evening.